Alrighty, guys, welcome back to another episode of So What's Your Goal? I'm your host, Travis Otto. Now, if you are new to the show, you're going to make sure that you stick through to the end because we have an exceptional guest with us today in the studio. He's a former comptroller of the United States government. Now, it's a high up position. He did it for many, many years. Now, for the new listeners that we have, you're going to want to make sure you listen through to the end because I can guarantee you that you're going to learn something new that's either going to help your finances, your health, or your relationships, maybe all three of them. But most importantly, we're going to inspire you to take action. Now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mr. David M. Walker to the show. Mr. David Walker, he was the former comptroller of the United States. He served under President Bill Clinton and George Bush. He was an inductee to the Accounting Hall of Fame. He's the author of 4 books. David also attended Harvard University, and he taught as a professor at the U.S. Naval Academy. He has over 40 years of experience across public, private, and nonprofit sectors. His expertise is in fiscal responsibility and government transformation. David, we're thrilled to have you on the show, man. Welcome.
Go ahead.
So thanks for having me, or me having you, whatever. But I had a couple of questions here put together for you that maybe you could answer for us here. But one of the things that comes to my mind first is the U.S. is in like what, $34 trillion worth of debt, right?
Almost.
Do you think like
trillion.
almost 35 trillion? So do you think that like we're at a point of no return, or do you think like there's we could put policies in place to turn this ship around?
Well, first, it's never too late, but time is not working in our favor.
Yeah.
Let me give you a few data points. We're almost at $35 trillion in debt, but that's just the tip of the iceberg, because that $35 trillion does not count unfunded civilian and military pensions, retiree health care, unfunded Social Security and Medicare obligations. When you add all those things up, it's not $35 trillion, it's $125 trillion and growing faster than the economy. So we already have too much debt as a percentage of the economy. We've already lost control of our budget. Most of the budget is mandatory spending. We've written a blank check. Our fastest growing expense is interest. Those are all bad things, and we need to change it. And so that's a lot of what the book's about. It's about a lot of things, but one of the central things that it's about is that what do we need to do to put our finances in order? It's not just what policy changes we need, but what kind of different processes do we need to use, and what type of safeguards, like a constitutional amendment, do we need to have in order to get us on the right path and make sure that we stay on the right path. So it's not too late, but time's not working in our favor. And the biggest deficit we have in Washington is a leadership deficit.
Yeah. I agree with that entirely, man. I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, like, I'm a younger guy. I mean, I'm 32. So I have, hopefully another 50, 60 at least.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, it's like, where is the United States going to be if we don't get the right leadership in the right places, and you serving for the government for as long as you did. I mean, are there politicians out there that we can trust? Like, are there leaders out there that we can trust? And if so, who are they?
The truth is there's not a party of fiscal responsibility today.
Yeah.
And the truth is, until you get a president that is willing to make this a priority and use the bully pulpit to go directly to the American people with the facts, the truth, the tough choices, and who will work on a bipartisan basis to be able to address this issue. We had one in the 90s. It was called Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton worked with Newt Gingrich and others to make some meaningful changes. So it can be done. But it starts at the top, and it will have to involve special processes, because if you think they're going to do all they need to do through the regular order on a piecemeal basis, that'll never happen. They can't even pass the budget and appropriations bills on time. In my lifetime, they've only done it 4 times on time, and the last time they did it on time was 1996.
Yeah, too much division. I almost think it's by design sometimes. They want to keep us dazed and confused.
You want to treat us like mushrooms in the dark and shoveling stuff on us. And I won't mention what the stuff is, but
yeah. So do you think there's any politicians that are going to be up for election this year that could help us go in the right direction, or you think they haven't surfaced yet?
Well, the only good thing is whoever gets elected, if it's one of the 2 major candidates, it will be their last term. And therefore, they won't have to face re-election again, which
Yeah,
theoretically they could do tough things and not worry about the impact of whether or not they're going to get reelected. Now,
that's true.
whether or not they'll do that is the big question mark. And what I'm trying to do is to try to make sure that the moderators for the debates start asking some meaningful questions about how, what do they propose to do and how do they propose to get done? Because right now, neither
Yeah,
of the major candidates have provided leadership on this. And in some cases, they've said they won't do things that need to be done, like save Social Security. They say, I'm not going to touch it. Well, if you don't touch it, in 9 years, everybody's benefits get cut 20% across the board. That's what you get if you do nothing. So we need leadership,
yeah,
not laggardship.
yeah. I was reading up on you. I remember you saying that leadership, not laggardship, which there seems to be a lot of the laggardship.
Yes, yes.
What do you think? What do you think of the job that Jerome Powell's doing? And if given the opportunity to sit in his seat, would you do anything differently?
Well, first, I think the Fed is supposed to be independent and insulated from partisan politics and political considerations. I
Yeah,
think in theory that's the case. In reality, it's really not. Okay, especially in
yeah,
an election year. I think the Fed kept interest rates too low for too long. I think they engaged in self-dealing of our debt. They bought trillions of dollars of U.S. debt rather than going to the market and having to pay a market price for it. That helps in the short term, but it increases the risk over time.
yeah,
Paul Volcker was a friend of mine. He had great courage. He was a big man in many different ways, from stature as well as his values and character. He called me the Paul Revere of fiscal responsibility, which I'll always remember and be proud of. We don't have any Paul Reveres today.
yeah,
On the monetary side, we don't have any, not Paul Revere's. We don't have any Paul Volckers today.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
think now Chairman Powell's trying to do the best he can.
Hmm.
I think their number one priority needs to be fighting inflation. I don't think he should be pressured to reduce interest rates just because it's an election year. I think we need to make
Yeah.
sure that we get inflation under control, and then once we get inflation under control, then we can end up easing interest rates.
So do you think he's heading down that path? Is he doing the right things in your opinion?
I think the market is expecting to get 2 rate cuts this year. That may
Yeah,
or may not happen, but so far he's shown discipline that we're still well above the inflation target of 2%. And he's shown restraint in not trying to end up reducing rates too quickly. And
yeah,
hopefully he'll continue. But the real thing is we got to get spending under control. I
yeah.
mean, spending is out of control. And that's got to be a top priority. And it's not going to happen this year.
No, so one thing I've always heard, from people is, a lot of people's beliefs are, the government is essentially a business and it needs to be treated like one. Do you agree with that philosophy?
Oh, the government's not a business, but there are business principles that can apply. For example, you need to
Okay.
have a strategic plan. We have no plan. Secondly,
Yeah.
you need to have outcome results-based indicators to know how you're doing. Are you getting better or worse? And how do you compare to your competitors or comparator group? We don't have that. You need to have appropriate, controls and systems to be able to help you work in a safe and productive manner. And so there are a lot of things that are transferable. I'm on the Defense Business Board, which focuses on
Hmm.
economy, efficiency, and effectiveness for the Pentagon. There's a lot of opportunity there for
Yeah.
improvement. And you want to bring successful business practices, but in the end, the government's not about making money. The government's about making a difference in the lives of as many Americans as possible. But in order to be able to do
Yeah.
that, you got to have goals, objectives, and outcome indicators. And it doesn't.
Yeah. I think just too many people are focused on, am I going to get reelected next year?
That's correct. Very, very myopic. And the other thing is we have too many career politicians The founders never
Yep.
intended that. They intended people to come out of the real world for a period of time and then go back to the real world. That's
Yeah.
what we need. But that's going to take a constitutional amendment, like 12-year term, and that's in the book. The public supports 12-year term limits.
And what's your book again? So all the listeners can hear.
America in 2040, still a superpower, question mark. And you can find out more about it at www.americain2040.com. It's a wake-up
Okay.
call, a call to action, and a way forward.
Awesome. And one last question for you. If you could go back to when you're 30 years old, what advice would you give yourself?
If I could go back to when I was 30 years old, what advice would I?
Yeah. Yeah. Knowing what you know now.
Look, in America, if you have a good education, a positive attitude, a strong work ethic, solid moral and ethical values, you have unlimited potential. Unlimited potential. With regard to financial matters, have a budget, stick with it, get out of debt as quick as you can, plan, save, and invest, preserve your savings, focus on your current job, do absolutely the best you can. You're likely to do better in things that you like. So make sure you're picking a field that ultimately you're going to get into a field where you really like what you're doing. Making a difference is much more important than making money. I mean, once you end up having enough, understand what that is, and then focus on doing things that will make things better for others. Just a few ideas.
Awesome. 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 Well, thank you so much for
My
your
pleasure.
time. I appreciate it. And have a good one, sir. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Travis. Nollins, here we go.